Hello, hello. My name is Jennifer Tao,
And I'm Darlene Rempel.
and I am so excited to have a guest today. And her
Mhm.
name is Stephanie. Welcome, Stephanie, to Grief Talk.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me.
This is so amazing that you've made time to join us because here at Grief Talk, we every Wednesday we share stories that heal. And today we're just so excited and honored that you've agreed to share your story. We like to tell our friends and family who are watching, when you hear someone's story, like listen with the heart, with ears, because most times if we listen with our intellect, it doesn't work. And so my commitment to you, Stephanie, is that I will listen with my heart, with ears, and we are just so blessed to hear your story because I know somebody will be listening and their lives will be changed because of you.
Well,
So
thank
I'm just so grateful.
thank you for what you guys are doing too, what you ladies are doing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Darlene.
So we'll start. Yeah, we just had a couple questions. We'll just let you share. So please maybe describe first what your life was before your loss.
So I met my husband Jeff, um, and we had both been going through divorces. And when we met, we fell deeply in love, and he was from Canada. And I was in the US. And so we had this long distance love romance for a few years. And it was just everything you can imagine in a fairy tale, like a Nicholas Sparks kind of movie. And so it was just beautiful. I mean, we literally loved to be together every minute of every day. And it was absolutely just magical. In fact, our friends were just like, look at us and think, you guys are sickening. Like, we don't even want to look at you anymore. Don't come around us. You make us feel inadequate, and they would joke, of course. And it was just a beautiful love relationship. And, my children grew to love Jeff deeply, and he became just a huge part of our lives and our family.
Wow. Yeah. So how did you meet him? Tell us the story.
Okay, so we met at this wonderful story. It was a beautifully romantic place, a pool in Las Vegas.
I want to go to Las Vegas.
So yeah, I approached him. I was newly out of my first marriage, and I'm just like, what the heck? Let's just go for it. And I started talking to him. And then one thing led to another, and we talked and talked, and that's all. No Vegas stories. And all we did was talk. And then went out with my girlfriends that evening. He had given me his number, so we connected. And the next day I said, I'm leaving. And he said, can I come walk you to the airport, or to the cab to the airport? And that's how we did it, and gave a hug goodbye. And he was off to Canada that night, and I was back to California.
Wow.
And then we spent 3.5 years traveling back and forth about every 2 weeks between Canada and California.
Wow. Lots of air miles, right?
Lots of air miles, lots of coordinating between both of our full-time jobs and children and
Wow.
scheduling. And it was a lot, but we were sickened to be apart. Like, it was like this sick feeling. We hated being apart, literally hated not being able to touch one another. So we were just very deeply connected from the moment we first met. And it was just evident, like, and people thought I was crazy. And I'm like, I think I was my early to mid 40s at the time. And people thought, you can't be, there's no way, like, you're just love struck, it's going to pass. And I'm like, oh no, this is real. And for many years later, it was.
Awesome.
So beautiful.
Yeah. So tell us what happened. Tell us about your event.
Well, so then eventually Jeff moved to the US where I was at. We had him here. He had left his career up there, and his children were grown and out of the house. And so it made more sense for him to come to California, where mine were still in school and younger. And that's how we kind of decided which country we would live in. And so he moved here looking for a job, a career. We weren't sure what we were going to do for work. I was still practicing law at the law firm I was at. And then eventually it kind of came to the thought of, why don't we do something together? Okay, what can we do? And then together turned into, he finished his career up at the as a respiratory therapist in Canada, and mine was as an attorney here. And we both kind of said, let's let it go, and basically just throw caution to the wind like we had from the first day we met. And we took a risk, and bought a business, bought a hair salon, and we don't do hair in Orange County, California, by the beach area. And we thought, let's do this. We can do it. And we bought a business together.
Wow.
That was in December of 2017, the end of December.
Mhm.
And almost to the day, actually, no, I'm sorry, I just realized that right now. To the day, exactly 4 months later, is when we found out that he was diagnosed with cancer.
Wow.
He had been having some sinus infections, what we thought were sinus infections, and some other, it was about by January, February, they kind of started. By Valentine's Day and into March, it was pretty strong. And then at the end of April, it got so intense that he couldn't see out of his eye one night and just said, "Can you please take me in? I can't see." And he was never one to complain. He held a lot of the pain in. Took him in, and we waited for hours for the scans to come through and all the different tests they wanted to do on him. And before noon, they came in and said he's got a 5 centimeter tumor in the base of his skull near his brain on his optic nerve and up in the sinus region. And you just feel paralyzed. It's devastating. And I know there's millions of people all over the world that have had a very similar experience when you hear those words. And then when you hear the words right after that are, it's terminal, you have 3 to 6 months to live. And you think, you just moved here. We just bought our business. Like, we're just starting our lives finally together after all of this effort and work trying to, so you feel crippled, you feel paralyzed. And then you go into a survival mode, or at least we did.
So what was survival mode like?
After, calling the kids, parents, the immediate close family, and letting everybody know, and everyone's just, of course, in shock and devastated. It's like, well, what are we going to do? I had some experience, unfortunately, in my childhood, in my late teens and into my 20s, with my brother who passed from cancer as well. Caregiving for him and going through the medical tasks, if you will, of trying to figure out solutions and problems and doctors and things like that. And that was pre-internet and Googling and cell phones and all of that. So that was a bit more complicated. So for us, survival mode now looked like call every hospital we could find in the area who could do something for him. What can we do? It can't be 3 to 6 months. We can't just wait to die. That was not an option for us to sit around and wait, because we thought we haven't exhausted anything yet. After multiple doctors and hospitals and racing around throughout the weekend, because that ended up being like a Friday morning, I was able to find a doctor at UCLA that was a subspecialist in that particular area of cancer. And there were 5 of them in the US that did this kind of procedure. And he said, I can do it. Unlike the others who had said they wanted to do a craniotomy and cut his head open and take out what they could get and then put it back together. And we thought that, and Jeff, being in the medical field, knew a lot about a lot of these things that were being said. Some of this was newer to me. I thought a craniotomy just can't be the way that you're going to live the next possibly 3 to 6 months. And that can't be the way it's going to save or extend your life. So then we found this one doctor at UCLA. There was a lot behind the story. I won't go into it, how I got in there, because he was booked for months. But a lot of conversation, a lot of aggressive pursuing and begging and pleading and just kind of showing up and waiting. And he saw him that next day and said, I can take you next week. I can get this out through the nose without having to cut your head open. So they went in, took out about 80% of what they could get without damaging the brain or optic nerves, because they were trying to protect other parts, and got about 80% out. And then it turned into, okay, now what do we do now? There's still 20% in there, and it may have spread further. And again, I had a lot of history with cancer with my brother and living that through many years. So I thought, well, let's find the next doctor that now can at least take care of this 20%. We got 80 out, let's work on the 20, and how bad is it and where is it located? So again, multiple doctors, multiple visits and conversations led us to find another place that could do some really intense radiation. So we did a lot of radiation and chemo for about 8, I think it was either 6 to 8 weeks straight, 5 days a week. And it was extremely intense, and we took the most aggressive approach. And they got a lot of it. And
Mhm.
then it was the next 3 years, 3.5 years,
Mhm.
constantly about every 2 months, another
Mhm.
scan, another doctor, another pop up in the brain, in the spine, in the sinus area, somewhere it would pop up and we would have to attack it again. So we
Wow.
were constantly in survival attacking mode
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
about 3.5 years because it was relentless. We
Mhm.
didn't have breaks like, oh, people say, oh, you had nothing that last scan. I'm like, well, that was a 2 month break. And then we go
Mhm.
2 months later and now it's in 5 more tumors in his brain.
Wow.
And then they had to hit all of those. And 2 months later, it's now in his spine. We hit all, I mean, every 2 months, pretty much, we were having full body MRIs and we could find it. It was just everywhere. It was prevalent.
Wow.
So it was pretty relentless. And then the
Mhm.
pain started
Mhm.
and the intensity of the pain, we couldn't find enough drugs to keep him comfortable. We had loss of vision in one eye, cataract surgeries in both eyes, loss of hearing. We had to get hearing aids, a variety of things that were the ripple effect of surgeries, radiation, and chemo, and the
Mhm.
cancer itself. So it was a lot. And in the meantime, we have this business we just bought.
Right.
Right.
And that's our new livelihood. And that's our new, how are we going to pay the bills? So that
Mhm.
was kind of the pressure of that. And that was just 4 months after we bought the business, he was diagnosed. So it was quite an intense 3.5 years.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
What would you say your losses were? What were the losses that you were experiencing?
Um, my loss for me, and probably for Jeff also, I would say, started on April 27th of 2018. Because when you hear terminal,
Mhm.
and then when you realize that people can do things to put band-aids on or give you more time, you know it's coming. So you start grieving the death that's coming
Mhm.
on April 27th, 2018. His
Mhm.
passing was on September 1st of 2021.
Wow. Yeah.
So I
So
had
you.
a long grieving and long loss.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
And you look at everything. You look at, the things he's likely not going to be at, the things he won't be able to attend. You just don't
Mhm.
know which ones, but there will be there.
Mhm.
So you just try to make the most, literally, and people say this, but you truly have to intentionally act it out, to intentionally make each moment, each opportunity when there is no pain and there are no
Mhm.
hospitals and doctors, to enjoy the moments with each other or with our children. Because the loss is intense and it's overwhelming at times.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. So you already start grieving the things that he's not going to be at, right? But
Yeah,
that actually kind of drove you to be in present and make as many memories as you could.
absolutely, absolutely. It definitely did that for us, for both of us. And with me, I felt like I was locking them away because I knew he wouldn't be there one day. And for
Mhm.
him, it was just that hanging on, just
Mhm.
constantly like, I don't want to leave you. I don't want to be without you. I can't leave you alone. And we hated it. It was just awful. Even in the hospitals during COVID, the doctors were like, you can't come in, which I understood. So I usually waited out in the parking lot for sometimes 8 hours on end, or if they let me in, but oftentimes they let me in because Jeff was so insistent. He's like, I'll die if you don't let her in. Like, I can't, I need to touch her.
Mhm. Wow.
So it was a very intense love and connection that we had,
Mhm.
that this cancer just really actually made us a lot, I didn't say even a lot closer, but in some ways it just made it more powerful.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Stephanie. Just listening, I'm just thinking, oh my goodness, Stephanie, would you be able to share how did you take care of you while you're taking care of him? What are some of the practical things that you did
Yeah.
to help even just day at one day at a time?
So I've always liked exercise. So for me, that is an outlet for me,
Mhm.
and music. So those are two things that I usually would combine together. So and picked up running a number of years ago. So with that, I kind of would go out for runs a lot, and I would just make it my time. Even if I knew he was needing me or something was going on at work, I would just, be there when I come back. If I go away for 30 minutes, an hour, whatever it is, I can just come back and handle it then. So I always would carve out time. And I've heard a lot of people say it's hard to do that. How do you, and I thought, to me, it's like, it's not hard. It's not selfish. It's self-preservation.
Yes.
And to me, the only way I could come back and help him to my fullest extent was to take time for me. And that would mean going out for a run, and I would clear my head. And my girlfriends always knew, they'd see me running in the streets. And living in Southern California, we can run year round. So it makes it nice that I would just play the songs, and whether I wanted to hear something fun and lively or something spiritual or inspiring, I had my different playlists. So I would pull those in when I needed that certain lift of whatever it was to take me to the place I knew I needed to get to take on the day. And a great support group, like friends, the circle of friends and family I have that I actually created a call list because I realized that I needed to reach out to people at times, but I didn't always know who the person was. And when you're heat in the moment, or you're at the hospital and you hear more tragic, devastating news of something new that came up, you sometimes wonder, who do I call? What do I do? And you just almost feel frozen and paralyzed again. So I made a list, and I would look at all the names, and I love them all equally in different ways.
Yeah.
I would go, okay, this is the one today because I need to laugh. And I know she'll make me laugh. Or this is the one because she'll just listen. Or this is the one because she'll put me in my place and tell me to shape up, And I have all those, luckily for myself, I have created over the years a wonderful support network of women and some male friends as well, but mostly my women girlfriends that I can call for a laugh or a cry or come to Jesus talk or whatever it might be.
I love that so much, Sydney. Thank you for sharing that. I've never had anyone say that about a call list, because most times with lots of caregivers, we give it all and we don't take care of ourselves. So sometimes we even feel guilty to do something for ourselves. And what a nice idea to create that call list. And different, like we all have different, and everybody plays their role. Great,
right.
Great one.
Yeah. And taking the time occasionally. I didn't do it often, but if someone said, hey, I want to get a bite to eat, or go meet for a glass of wine, or come over to my house for a glass of wine or whatnot, occasionally I would go. It didn't happen too often, to be honest, because there was a little bit of guilt built into, if I'm going to go have fun with a girlfriend, versus exercising, which was for me, that I felt a little bit bad about that, meaning because he's sitting here in excruciating pain and can't leave the home. But oftentimes I pushed myself to go anyway, even though I was feeling a little guilty. And then I realized later that you were fine. It wasn't a bad thing. You're not a bad wife. You're not a bad person, just because you see them and they can't enjoy the things in life that you can still enjoy. And that's a very hard thing to come to terms with, because I still want to enjoy life, but I want to do those things with him. So it's finding that balance of doing the things I like to do still, but in tiny little minimal increments, to kind of still feel alive myself in other ways, and not being just a caretaker, which is, it's very taxing on the body and the mind and the spirit.
I'm just writing the notes down. My pen is like, it's so good. It's so good. Right.
So what are the things, or one thing that helped you cope with your loss and find those moments of healing?
It's the losses were different along the way for me, right? Because mine wasn't an immediate tragic one, for instance, that some people, and I know, Jennifer's experience and things she shared with me, and different people in my life. I have friends and family that have had immediate tragic losses, which you don't have the time to do what I did.
Yeah.
But then you also don't have to live it every day too. So there's always the pro and con to each one, if you will. For me, the coping helped me through that loss of knowing what was coming was kind of the things I shared, my support group and self-care time. After his passing, I allowed myself to really get into a dark hole when I wanted to, and I needed to. But I never allowed myself to stay too long, which is important because I think for me, at least, getting stuck, when you get stuck in that place, and I don't know what stuck look like. You know, someone might be 1 hour, some might be 5 days. I don't know what stuck is to everybody. But for me, I would allow myself to get ugly and dark and cry and call people if I wanted to, or be all alone if I wanted to. And, but never get stuck there too long. So and it was just more of a self-trained thing, I think, that I taught myself to allow it, but not for too long. And that to force myself to find other focuses and distractions to go, okay, even if all today is you're going to do is take a shower and brush your teeth, it's something different than laying in bed and crying all day. So just allowing myself to do that, but not allowing the negativity to creep in. It's very easy for it to get in there. For me, the negativity never really found its way in. Like I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel regret. I didn't feel those things because I wouldn't allow them in because I knew it wasn't valid and there was no place for it. I did everything I could for him to make his life as pleasant as it could be and as loving as it could be. And his passing was as beautiful as it possibly could be. So, that I think with helping with the coping with the grief, and also knowing that we spoke very liberally with our hearts. And when you mentioned something earlier when we were talking, Jennifer, that's something that I always say. It's one of my little mottos is, you know, whatever it is in life, and I tell my children this and my friends this, is we keep our eyes open and our hearts open. Because your eyes can see the opportunities sometimes, and your heart, but it has to be open in order to, you know, allow it in. Jeff and I always spoke. We always spoke what was in our hearts. And so that allowed me to not feel regret or feel like I had not done something or said something, or, you know, we always want more time. So that's going to happen.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that completing, right? We call it completing, where you can actually say what's on your heart. You've said everything you wanted to say, which is almost a great gift compared to when something tragic happens and you have those things that you wish you could have said.
Right. And I didn't know I was completing. It just felt like what I needed to do. I was like, I need to, and it didn't happen. And ironically, again, because our relationship was very, I'm told it's been very unique. We did it even before he was diagnosed. And maybe that was the distance. Maybe it was the way our love was. I'm not certain. But we were very much in sharing. And then, of course, it got more intense, I think, as he got more ill. So, yeah, you just, and it's, I think, easier for some than it is for others. But we just shared, we both were very open to doing that and just sharing all the thoughts and feelings and put it out there for one another.
I love that so much. Caring is sharing, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I'm going to steal that from me. Keeping our eyes and heart open is key.
Yeah.
Because we find most times when something happens or there's a difficult conversation, we actually close our heart and we're not open. Right. And sometimes it's because it's too painful to talk about, or sometimes we fear judgment. You know, there's all the reasons why we close our hearts. But if we can keep our heart open, what I'm hearing you say, it does help with the whole process of loss and caring of our loved ones. We do share here that all of us will experience more than 40 losses in our lives. And imagine if we could all keep our heart open.
Right.
Like really. Right?
Yeah, because it's because I think that naturally the instinct is to say, like, oh my God, the pain is so horrible. It just hurts so much. I never want to experience again. And the way to never experience again is to close it off.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's an easy way out. To me, that's an easier way out. That's not what I wanted. Because I thought,
Mhm.
well, then what kind of life am I going to live? How am I going to enjoy it if I'm
Yeah.
closing myself off to this or closing myself off to that or all these different things? And so to me, it was, and it wasn't easy. Don't get me wrong. It's not like I'm like, oh, okay, he's gone. Now I'm going to have life, and then you know what I mean. Like it's not like that at all. It's a
Mhm.
process, and it's
Mhm.
talking through myself, talking to myself
Mhm.
to get myself to convince myself to go, okay, you know, your heart can be open again. It can be open to all these new things, all these different things in life.
Mhm.
So, and to just appreciating what we had,
Mhm.
appreciating what I still have, the memories we had together, the things we did,
Mhm.
honoring him in the ways I still do.
Mhm.
So, you know, it is really important, I think, to keep your heart open because I think closing it off, a number of people that I know have done that. And um, I'm not saying it's wrong or right because I don't think there's a wrong or right answer for any of this because grief is just,
Yeah.
it's just a terrible thing, right?
Mhm.
It can be, but there's a way to get through it and to move forward.
Mhm.
And one of my other things I like to always say is I love to weave the grief and the happiness together. It doesn't have to be individualized and distinct. And that's
Mhm.
what I feel that a lot of people, and again, this is not me being judgmental, but yet me saying things I've seen and experienced with other people is that it's okay, I'm going to get through the grief. I'm going to get through it all. And then when it's over and I'm done feeling this horrible feeling, then I'll start living again. And I
Mhm.
just feel like it's never going to end. I'm going to live with grief the rest of my life
Mhm.
for my brother, Jeff, for the love
Mhm.
of my life, Jeff,
Mhm.
um, for my dad that passed last year. I will have the grief forever.
Mhm.
So if I'm going to wait, then I'm never going to live.
That's so good. Yeah. 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 And able to do those conflicting feelings, right? To have that joy. I love how you say it weaves it together because sometimes we're like, we can only feel happy this time or we have to feel sad now, but it actually, when you can weave them together, because we feel in moments, right? In one
Right.
moment, you can feel sad and joy at the same time, right?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah. So if you had one thing to share, one nugget that you'd like to share with somebody who's experiencing loss, what would it be? I know you've shared us lots, but
The one.
the one.
Experiencing the loss of a loved one. Um, one nugget, one more nugget. I wrote a few notes down here before we talk. Let me see if there's something that really, something, here's a couple thoughts. Something Jeff and I did when we found out he was diagnosed was we made a bucket list.
Mm,
Um, we always did wonderful things. I mean, we had a beautiful life. I can't complain. Even before he was diagnosed, it was wonderful. So, but when he did, is like, okay, let's make a bucket list. So we did that. And we checked off a handful of the things on there. And some were really small little things like a drive to this area he hadn't seen in California he wanted to see. And some were bigger, like we went to Paris and did a photo shoot and it was beautiful. And I think I maybe even sent you a picture of one of those. And but we didn't get to complete the bucket list. So one of the things I decided I wanted to do, and I'm not sure, I'm not going to hold myself, you know, in trouble if I don't complete it, but I'd like to still complete the bucket list. So I've done a couple of the things without Jeff, but I
mhm,
brought him in a small baby urn with me
mhm,
and sprinkled some ashes in the area where he wasn't able to physically go with me.
wow.
So that was something that it just kind of, okay, honey, we're here. And I had a good cry and
Mhm,
whoever might have been with me, or maybe I was alone, depending on the place. Um, it was beautiful. And it just, again, it kind of felt like, okay, so we did something else together.
mhm,
Um, and I really enjoyed that experience. Um, the other, I guess, nugget I would say would be going back to the open heart, open eyes.
mhm,
I, you know, my situation of being my husband, someone else's situation, you know, might be a sibling or a parent or a child or other things, a cousin, someone else who's close to them. But in my situation, it was allowing myself to love again. And
mhm,
that's something that was, at first confusing,
Mm.
because when he passed, I thought, I'll never need to love again. I had the best, like, and he was incredible. I don't want it. I wasn't opposed to it. I just thought, I don't want it. I'll be always judge, and I'll wonder, and I'll think they'll never compare to him. It's like, why do I need it? I had everything I could ever ask for.
Mhm.
And then I woke up one day after I'd done a trip by myself to the Caribbean. I had gone alone,
Mm.
a place that he wanted to go that he didn't have a chance to go, and took some of the ashes with me there and spread some there. And I did this trip all by myself, not knowing anybody where I was at. And when I came back, I thought, you know what, I felt great. It was one of the best trips I ever took. And I thought I could do this. I could live doing things on my own with my children, my friends. And then I thought, I don't want to. I,
Mm.
I want to have someone with me, and I want to enjoy that companionship again and that love. And it'll be a different kind of love.
Mhm.
So I allowed myself to open myself up again
Mhm.
to seeing what that might look like,
Mm.
and met someone. And now we are very much in love. And
Mhm.
he is extremely respectful and honoring of Jeff and his memory, as he would have to be for me to be with him.
Mhm.
And in fact, there's some pictures behind me of that's kind of like a little area. I have a few pictures of Jeff and myself and the kids,
Mhm.
and I keep that in the home. And it's just, he's a wonderful new man in my life, and I can love both. It's a new beginning I didn't ask for,
Mhm. Wow.
but the duality of the two emotions, I'm able to love and honor Jeff, and at the same time still enjoy moving forward with Tim.
Mhm. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, and that's like like we always talk about how you grieve that when you can grieve that loss, when you can grieve and like do that, grieve that loss, and realize that you're not replacing it with somebody else, right? That you can start. I love how you said you started a new relationship, right? And so when we can grieve our losses, when you work through, from what you tell us, your story is you've worked through that process. You had an incredible marriage relationship and you work through that. And I just love that part, that then you're open to start the next chapter, which isn't going to be the same, right? It's going to be different, but it can still be, it can be wonderful, but it's not that replacing, right?
No, it's not at all. There's no replacing, there's no replacing anybody. You can't replace a parent, a spouse, a sibling, you can't replace them, but you can create new relationships in your life that maybe they just still bring love and joy and happiness into your life in a different form.
Our hearts aren't closed, right? I love how, it's just like we love our children, different children. And when we have one child, we have this love for them. When we have the next child, it's not the same love, but it's still that love for.
I use the same analogy, literally to that exact analogy to someone recently, because we were talking about it and how can you do this? Like, they were saying, how are you able to do this? It's amazing. And I thought, and then that's what exactly came to my mind was I had two children, and I had my first one, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to get pregnant with a second. I'll never love that poor second child. Will never feel the love from me that my first one felt. And I was completely wrong, of course, right? And so that's how I describe it, is my love for Jeff isn't diminished or changed, or it's not gone. It's not lost. It's not forgotten. It simply is what it is. It's exactly in this place where where we ended it. And I still talk to him. It's not even ended, because we still talk. We still have conversations. And then I'm able to also, our hearts are capacity is limitless, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so then I'm like, okay, I can keep all of this, and I don't have to let it go of any of it. And I can also grab onto all of this over here and enjoy that as well.
Oh, that's so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing with us and being open and being encouraging, right? I love
Oh,
just
you're welcome. Absolutely. I love sharing. So,
and seeing somebody who's gone through strength, right? We're starting a workshop about turning grief into strength, right? And it seems like that's your story. That's what I see in you, that you've taken this hard thing, but you've worked through it, and you've turned it into a strength that you can move on with. So thank you so much for sharing.
well, thank you. Thank you both so much.
Thank you. I've written a page of notes and I was just writing. I would just want to say thank you, Stephanie. It takes courage
Yes.
to share your story, and all our listeners will be listening to this, and I know they will be taking notes just like I did. So thank you.
Yes.
It's an
Well,
honor to have you
anytime.
here.
Thank you both. Thank you both
Yeah.
very much. for what
All
you're
right. Take care,
Thank
and
you.
we'll connect again soon.
Yes.
All right. Sounds great. Take care, ladies.
Bye.
All right.